not a conscience, not some morals in the main questionable, morally gray character. That was the time travel. He's just a guy with some misplaced feelings. He's just a little cutie. He's just a little cutie guy that just doesn't know how to express his feelings. Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kaylee, and this is Read, Rant, Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. I give you a beat-by-beat, chapter-by-chapter breakdown of a book that you guys voted for. This week, I was feeling a little edgy. I was feeling a little dark. So I put up Lights Out by Nevessa Allen and Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. As I'm filming, it is a 55-45 split, which means, drumroll please, it's close enough that I will also be doing a video on the other book as well. So you little sickos have that to look forward to. But today we're talking about Lights Out. I feel like I miss a lot of these trending romances. You know, I'm not on TikTok, I'm not on social media in that way. So I'm like 6 months behind. A year, 2 years behind on finding anything crazy that you guys want to hear about. So forgive me for that. However, I read Lights Out and I am 44% of the way through Butcher and Blackbird. Girl, this is crazy. I'm so excited to talk about both of these books with you guys today. Like I said, the focus is on Lights Out though. What is it? If you're asking, Kaylee, I don't know what that is. Bestie, let me tell you. So this is one book in currently a duology. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or like a series or what, but it's one of two books by Nevessa Allen. This book was published in 2024, 338 pages, and currently on Goodreads, it is sitting at a whopping 4.18. So incredibly highly rated with 320,000 ratings. If you don't know what the book is or what we're about to get into, I'll read you the description real quick and then we'll talk about some other disclaimers that I have and then we'll dive right in. We'll start the chapter by chapter, beat by beat breakdown, okay? So sorry, we're gonna sidetrack 2 seconds. Last week, my video was about Morning Glory Milking Farm. That was a lot. I'm not gonna lie, that was a lot. And the top comment that I pinned says, I feel like I know more about you now than I should without 3 dates under our belt. Girl, we're about to continue that trend. The book description on Goodreads opens, I don't need another kink. That thought pops into my head whenever I pull up my favorite social media app. But alas, every time I scroll, I learn something new about myself, and another one is born. And yes, I know I'm responsible for what the algorithm shows me, but I'm trying to ignore that fact. Lately, my feed has been dominated by by masked men. I've favorited videos with them dressed in full cosplay, decked out in futuristic military apparel, and wrapped up like ghouls. But more than anything else, my FYP, or my For You page, is filled with shirtless men wearing ghost masks. Bonus points if they're heavily tattooed, wielding a knife, or covered in fake blood. At night, I dream about being chased by them, of them catching me and doing deliciously dark things to my more than willing body. Jesus Christ. I never could have guessed that by sending one drunken text, those dreams would become my new reality. Lights Out is a fast-paced, dark romance with a morally gray male lead. Some themes and scenes may be disturbing to readers. Please check the trigger warnings at the beginning of the book. Hey, book description, I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's discuss the trigger warnings that are provided by the author at the very, very beginning of the book. Which, shout out, they actually provide trigger warnings in the text. I know there's like a huge argument of if an author is responsible for providing trigger or content warnings, and then a secondary argument of if it should be in the book or if it should be on their website and linked, and various opinions, whatever. I'm all about having the information there, like easily accessible, and then somebody being able to ignore it if they don't want to read it. I would rather have more than enough information than not enough. So Personally, I am an advocate for, I'm going to tell you the questionably bad things that we're going to get into, just so if you are sensitive to any topics, you can prepare yourself mentally or click on another video and I'll see you on the next one. Or just, you know what I mean? Just enjoy it, whatever. I'll have the timestamp down below if you do want to skip this portion of the video, if you feel like it's going to spoil anything for you. But yeah, so trigger warnings. Lights Out is a dark stalker rom-com with heavy themes. I actually did laugh out loud at this. I'm genuinely, I'm not gonna lie, I laughed out loud. That means a lot. Did I cringe? Less than you would think if you know me, if you've seen my videos. Significantly less than you would expect, which means a lot. Lights Out is a dark stalker rom-com with heavy themes. Reader discretion is advised, as this book contains sexually explicit discussion and scenes, alcohol consumption, mention of off-page. Girl, that was possibly the worst time that could have happened. Mention of off-page R, child abuse, and like memory, like they're recollecting it, medical content, blood and gore in a hospital setting, discussion of mental health, mention of serial killers and their crimes, limited description of a mass shooting, stalking, invasion of privacy, home invasion, hidden cameras, hacking, theft, unintentional cannibalism, remembered, like reflected upon, death, car accident, again, remembered, description of a violent death, remembered, death of a parent, breath play, knife play, gun play, fear play, primal play, mask play, consensual, dubious consent for everyone brave enough to ride. Ew! Oh my god. Hold on. I'm gonna read that in a second. Okay, so in all, that content trigger warning, A++, baby. A++. No critiques, no notes. No notes. That is so, they didn't make light of anything. They listed very specific details to the point of listing things like hidden camera and medical content. I don't think I would have thought of like things that could ruin somebody's experience as a reader. Love that. Navessa has really either listened to sensitivity readers or, you know, is truly, I feel like this girl is in the trenches with all of us. She knows what's up. It feels that way. And I'll talk about it more as we get into like the actual book and the content itself. But I'm like, she's one of us. You can just tell. What is us? Who is us? Hey, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? So content warning-wise, trigger warning-wise, I was very impressed and very happy with that list. Now, for the dedication, the reason I had that reaction earlier, the dedication is for everyone brave enough to ride the handle of a knife. It's a knife. How? That's how I feel. That's how I felt the whole book. Yo, Again, I'm 10 minutes into this video. We're gonna learn a lot about each other today. I don't get it. I don't get that one. There's a lot of ones I get, and I can be like, real recognize real, right? I see it. Hey, heard chef. This one, knife play? Don't get it. Couldn't be me. Okay. Anyway, chapter 1, Allie. Allie's full name is Alyssa Cappellucci. She's Italian, and she is a trauma nurse or like a emergency room nurse in a big inner city hospital. She sees a lot of stuff. They have an incredibly high crime rate. You know, she's reflecting on the difficulties of being a nurse and witnessing death and trauma and not great things. And it's highlighted through this first chapter where she is talking to a newer nurse named Brinley. This is Brinley's first day on the job where she is like fully on her own. And of course, it happens to be on the same day that they have a very tragic, like, mass casualty incident. Super not great. She is very clearly, when Allie goes into the break room, Brinley is suffering from some level of shock, or the, like, pre-stages about to be in shock from these horrific things that she has witnessed. And so this first chapter is really establishing Allie's, obviously, her career, her understanding, her kindness, her helping other people, the responsibility that she places on herself to help others. Very good character development. I love the fact that we're dealing with a very common and real job. You know what I mean? We're not dealing with some made-up thing or some, mafia princess. I love a good mafia book, but I love relatable characters more than that. I love strong, independent women killing it in jobs, doing difficult work, being represented in books. And genuinely, I felt like that's what was happening in this book. So anyway, that's what this is. She is like quite literally, Allie and her favorite coworker, Tanya, are talking the new coworker off the ledge. Hey, it's okay. Like, you can get through this. You did so good. I'm so proud of you. Tonight was really, really hard. This is one of the more difficult nights. I promise it does get easier. Do you have the hotline for the 24/7 therapists that were provided? Do you have XYZ resources that's provided by the hospital? She says no, right? They provide her those resources, and Brinley goes as far as going into Allie's locker, putting her number in her phone, and forcing Brinley to take a ride home. She's like, hey, you shouldn't drive. I also don't really want you to take an Uber. I'll take you back home. So Allie gives her a ride. And on the way there, they're doing a little bit of reflection. Allie is internally, about how maybe numb she's become to these circumstances. And when she asks Brinley, hey, do you have a boyfriend? Do you live with somebody? Is somebody there? She says, yeah, I have a boyfriend. And Allie says, okay, cool. I'm glad, she's going to be home with somebody, right? To cope with this, traumatic event. And Allie says, hey, if you can, you should talk to him. If he can handle it, if he's not squeamish, if he can, whatever, you need to unload some of what you've experienced tonight so it doesn't just fester with you. And Allie is doing some self-reflection in that discussion and on her drive home after dropping Brinley off, she doesn't really have anyone close to her. She doesn't have these strong relationships. She's not driving home to a partner to discuss the, down and dirty and darkness that she deals with. And it's not something that you can just talk to anybody about. Very obviously traumatic healthcare issues, that's not something that you can just talk to, they call them civilians. You can't talk to a normal civilian about. They're not going to know the trauma and the weight of those types of situations. And so she's had a very difficult time in her life having and maintaining relationships. I'm not a healthcare worker, personally. I do work in a field though where I can't come home and talk about things. And so I get it. There's this weird, if you're visual, or if you're not visual, I'm hunching my shoulders up to my ears. There's this feeling of, I don't know, dude, I can't tell you what's happening. I just need you to know I'm stressed out and everything sucks. Everything sucks and I can't say anything, but Jesus, Jesus Christ, everything, this all blows, Some professions have this level of people just don't get it. If you're not in the weeds, if you're not in the trenches, you don't get it. If you know, you know. And Allie is reflecting on that and how she truly has nobody. But when she gets home, she has her cat. Her cat's name is Fred, which personally I love. I love animals with actual human names. A dog named Hank, a cat named Fred. That's where a guinea pig named Jason. I love that. I love all of that. That's so hilarious to me. So anyway, her cat named Fred. She gets home, she greets Fred, everything's cool. And to decompress after such a bad day, Allie decides that she is going to open up her phone and she's going to go to her favorite social media app, aka this universe's non-copyright version of TikTok, and find her favorite creator. Her favorite creator, his name is The Faceless Man, and watch his videos and scroll through them. She knows his schedule. She's like, yeah, he posts new videos on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, or something like that, where she's like, I know exactly when he posts and I'm looking forward to it and I'm just going to scroll through his stuff and enjoy this content. It is so parasocial, which I say that with a judgmental tone, but also, hey. Anyway, so she's like, okay, I'm going to decompress. I'm going to watch these videos. This book has so much spice in it, both directly, explicitly discussed and implied. And so in these videos that she enjoys, there's a little bit of implication of things that the faceless man is doing off camera. Right? So she's like, oh yeah, this is so great. I've unlocked this new interest. I'm going to take a screenshot of this video, send it to a hookup of mine, and ask him to recreate this or see if he's into this so we can make it happen. Okay? I love a woman who's vocal about her wants and desires. Respect. Nothing but respect, right? So she messages a guy named Tyler. She takes a screenshot of the faceless man's TikTok and says, hey, this is kind of hot. Do you want to make it happen? And this dude, in chapter 2, Tyler, right, her ex hookup, he gets the message from Allie. He texts her back and he says, hey, I thought you died. You literally haven't talked to me in 2 months. Like, no, that's kind of weird for one. And for two, I'm like, I have a girlfriend. I'm talking to someone else now. F off. She's like, ugh, ignores it. But Tyler does not ignore it. Tyler goes on to then show his roommate on his couch with him. He hands him the phone and he says, dude, look at this thing this crazy girl asked me for. Like, this is so weird. Which I would just like to say, I understand locker room talk. I understand, women talking about escapades. Sure, that's the word we'll use. But like, I don't know, that seems so disrespectful and gross to me, just in like maybe I'm a prude, but like, it made me not like Tyler at all. Look at this girl. And his roommate grabs it. His roommate is named Josh. Josh looks at it and he says, oh, fuck, that's me. Josh is the faceless man. Oh my God. The guy that she's been crushing on the internet and like parasocial relationshiping with, relationshiping, and the guy that she's been like, trying to have this like paranormal relationship with and like obsessing over. Yeah, I said it. I said paranormal relationship with my full chest. Is her ex hookup's roommate. Immediately, I was reading this book. I said, I'm hooked. Actually, I'm hooked. Actually, I need to know what happens next. So, Josh sees this. He says, hey, can I see your phone? I need to look at that a little closer. And deletes the messages. At least deletes the video, deletes the screenshot, because you can see his tattoos. He's shirtless, and he's like, oh, if Tyler looks at this image any closer, he's gonna realize that that's me. Can't have that because like I have this anonymous secret profile and nobody can know about it, okay? We'll get to it in a minute. So he deletes it. He's like, oh my God, oops, fat fingers. Sorry about that. And we get some commentary about Josh reflecting on himself and his choices to be this masked, faceless stranger. And so I have some highlighted that I'll read to you now, because if there's anything that this book did, it was humanize maybe the stalker. This might, problematic statement, I understand that. Again, real, recognize, real. I understand what I'm saying is problematic. I'm saying it with my full chest anyway. This might be the most wholesome, romantic stalker romance I have ever read. This was the first time that I have read a stalker romance where I said, wait, why do I feel bad for him? It felt like if this whole book felt like if Deadpool and the guy from You, Joe, is that his name? Were like merged into one person, right? This like snarky, sarcastic, hee hee ha ha fun time self-awareness from Deadpool were to have combined with Joe from You, of the kind of, not off-putting necessarily, I don't really know the description to give him, the very like straightforward, self-reflective, like in your own mind commentary about the way you think through things, and almost like a dryness there. It's this really, really weird like juxtaposition of character with Josh that felt real, that felt, I don't know, it immediately, I had a soft spot for this guy. And I was like, Am I the problem? I'm such a hater. This is a sidetrack. I'm such a hater of books like Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. Really? Anything by H.D. Carlton? I'm not going to lie to you. You know what I mean? I'm such a hater of like Colleen Hoover, H.D. Carlton, Penelope Douglas, XYZ, where it's these really, really problematic male main characters. And then I read a book like this where I'm like, objectively, I know this guy sucks, right? I know he's doing really bad things, but also, it's kind of hot. I was like, I kind of like it. I was like, is this how all these other women feel? Have I found my one particular niche where I'm now the problem? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Throughout chapter 2, we learn a little bit more about why Josh is the way that he is and why he has this account. So when Tyler is first showing him the screenshot, he says, Oh, she's an ER nurse, right? I already knew the answer to that, along with several other facts like her address, where she'd gone to nursing school, what kind of grades she got, and what her current work schedule was. You know, normal things that people knew about their roommates' ex hookups. Hello? And so you're like, okay, so hey, maybe not the most normal thing in the world. And he goes on to reflect that a lot of his research goes into the hookups and ex hookups of his roommate because Josh's dad is an uber famous serial killer who just had a documentary about him released on Netflix the summer before. The only communal mirror left in our apartment was the one in the half bath, and I turned my head down every time I was in there to avoid it. So yeah, my face was a problem, which is why the thought of wearing a mask was so appealing. So he looks like the spitting image of his father, especially he's now the age in which his father was at the height of committing his crimes. So a lot of the, like mugshots or like sketched photos of the perpetrator look just like Josh. So he has a very, very hard time looking at himself because he's like, if I look at my reflection too long, all I see is my father. Da 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 da. I have to screen my roommates, partners, so to make sure that they don't watch true crime, to make sure that they don't recognize me. Anytime I meet new people, I make sure I don't make eye contact for too long, right? Very concerned about looking like his father. Understandable, right? So the reason that he is one of these like masked, faceless people on social media is because, so yeah, my face was the problem, which is why the thought of wearing a mask was so appealing. I'd been fixated on it for years and finally found an excuse to don one after a story popped up on my newsfeed about the rise of thirst trap accounts with people wearing masks. It was a lofty think piece about the psychology behind the trend, and I ignored all that bullshit and zeroed in on the videos embedded into the article. I could do that, I realized, the thought striking like lightning. Here was a way to finally join social media, show off the body that I worked so hard for, and fulfill every human's desire to interact with others. Plus, I'd inherited some shit from my father, and one of those traits was wanting to be admired. I don't know why that quote in particular hit me hard, but it was interesting. I'd suppressed it for most of my life, but lately my therapist had been trying to convince me how normal it was to chase after fame and acclaim. Our primitive brain craved it because back when we were still bashing each other's heads in with mammoth bones, to be popular was to be safe and protected inside the cave. He has this very personal reason for having this thirst trap account. The roommate shows him this thing. So now Tyler, even more spurred on, is like, okay, now I need to know more about Allie because one, she's close to me, knows who I am. If she figures me out, that's a problem. And two, she's a little hottie toddy that apparently has the same kinks that I do. Let me find out more about this woman. So he goes through all of his comments on his social media to try and figure out who she is. Allie wasn't a stranger. I knew her better than I should have. Sure, but thanks to Dad's genetic contribution, boundaries were hard for me. She had been in my house, the one sanctuary that I had left. The need to protect my identity and keep Tyler and me safe was strong enough that I did FBI-level research into anyone who Tyler invited over. Thankfully, he understood my compulsion and told me ahead of time when he planned to have company. Usually, I stopped caring when I realized people weren't a threat to either of us, but my interest in Allie had remained long past the point of it that it probably should have. So he logs into his computer and created a few lines of code that would search for her in my comment sections. There were so many returns, my head started to spin. She'd liked and saved and commented. I just want to highlight on almost every single one on Maine. Bestie was horny on Maine. So he gets intrigued. Again, because he has somebody who he knows, who he kind of sort of trusts. He's done some research into. He knows that she's not some psycho true crime fan, right? He's like, wow, this actually has some potential. And oh my God, she's into me. And we have some interest. And again, it feels a little bit different than a traditional romance, whether it should or whether it shouldn't. That's your opinion. My opinion, I said, sign me up. Okay. He's going through her comments. He sees all of these comments from her and decides, yeah, She's into it. I'm into it. Her comments are literally begging and wishing that she would just come home and found out that I broke into her house. Let's make some things happen, right? He knows where she lives. Hey, it's a little concerning, but like, you know. So he breaks into her house. He did all this research about her. He found out that she lived alone. He doesn't think that she has any, like guard dogs or anything. And as he's breaking into her house, he's thankful that at least she has a deadbolt usage, but he's disappointed that she doesn't have a security system. So he's like, okay, we're going to have to fix that. But he continues to break into her house. When he gets in, closes the door behind him, he takes a moment to kind of breathe. There's no alarms, there's no dog, there's no whatever. But then he starts to hear Fred, her cat, yowling at him, right? Yelling at him, begging for attention. Fred comes around the corner, stares at him, hair on his back raised, freaking out. Josh has never had a pet. He's never been around an animal before because the cat might be small, but it looked like a fighter, and that I could appreciate. I'd never had a pet. Serial killers were well known for getting their start on small animals, and I didn't want the temptation in case I was more like Dad than I realized. I worried that if I adopted one, I either wouldn't feel anything for it, meaning none of the protective instincts or cute aggression most pet owners seem to be overwhelmed with, or I'd have all of my greatest fears confirmed and take one look at it and think, pray. Again, cannot highlight enough how much I appreciated, or I guess appreciated is the right word, the internal dialogue that happens with this character that, I don't know, added an element of realism to him that I feel like isn't with other stalker romances. I'm not going to pit women against each other, right? I'm a girl's girl, whatever. However, and I hate comparing things to things, but in terms of trending media, I feel like Haunting Adeline, Zayden, I think that's his name. I feel like we don't get his internal monologue to such a point where you're rooting for him or where you can kind of see where the logic connects. It's literally just him thirsting over a woman and how obsessed he is and how much he wants to control her and dominate her and, XYZ inherently bad things to this person, rather than self-reflection. This book felt like there was so much self-reflection, self-hatred almost to a point from the main male character that made him likable, understandable, kind of had you rooting for him to a certain degree that I appreciated, right? So he says all of this. Eventually, Fred warms up to him. He pets the cat. It's the first time he's ever pet an animal before. And he decides that he is going to record some content in Allie's bedroom. The scandal. Chapter 3, we cut back to Allie. She's at work yet again, and tonight is just kind of weird. And there's this excerpt that I highlighted that again felt like the character description and the character storylines felt rooted in reality to a degree that I feel like is missing from other books. We shared a troubled glance, her and Tanya, her favorite coworker, shared a troubled glance and then looked away from each other. Things like this happened sometimes, odd patterns emerging that made me think humans were more connected than we realized. One week we might see a spike in car accident victims without anything like bad weather or traffic to explain the uptick. The next we could get more domestic assault victims than usual, and the one after that more gunshot wounds. Tanya and I had talked about it a couple of times, wondering if humans shared some kind of hive mind, or if it had something to do with the magnetic currents or our subconsciouses all picking up on the same subtle signals from the world around us. I'd even mentioned it to one of the cops who regularly got stationed here, and instead of thinking I was a weirdo, he'd agreed with me, telling me he and his coworkers saw something similar. They'd get a slew of people who had almost no traceable connection to each other committing virtually the same crime in 1 week. The next, it would be a new group doing something else. In this chaos that she's having at work and the hecticness of it, she finally gets a moment to herself, and the only thing that she can really think to do is to get on her phone and check the faceless man's TikTok, because she's like, I know this is one of the days that he uploads and it's a really bad idea because I wish I was alone watching his videos, wink wink, but I need something to distract myself from the badness of today. So she opens up his video, she clicks it, and he is laying on what appears to be her comforter. So she is like, oh my God, in comments as such. And she's like, you jealous bitches. I own this comforter, right? And so she is really just freaking out over this fact. And so when she gets home to watch this video again for other purposes, she thinks what I consider to be like kind of, again, more valuable content to this idea of relatability and like blah, 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 blah. You'd think after all the blood and trauma that I'd seen tonight would distract me from my desire, but I was so used to it that it only did so in the moment. As soon as I had a second to myself again, images of the mask lying on what could have been my comforter swirled into the forefront of my mind. Lust was a natural response to traumatic events, the body wanting a reminder of being alive after skirting so close to death, and I'd long since stopped fighting it. Okay, so she pulls it back up. In the privacy of her own home, she says, let me look at this little hot guy. Let me look at this hot video where I can, believe that he's in my house. Let me watch it. She's watching it. She freezes in the last final seconds of the video where he's like in the mirror and he pans up. And in the corner of the video, she says, wait a second, is that my dresser? That's my things, right? Like that's my clutter on my dresser. And so when she goes into her room finally, at the end of the night, she finds his mask on her bed. He was in her house. He was in her house. And so she starts, understandably, freaking the frick out. Because it's one thing to fantasize about things. It's another thing to be completely faced with it and be like, holy shit, a man broke into my home. A scary man who I don't know broke into my home. I don't know what's happening. Living alone in a big city and seeing the worst of what it might do to women on a nightly basis made me paranoid. I had a gun in my car and one more besides the one I now held hidden nearby. I slept with a baseball bat beside my bed and mace and throwing knives on my nightstand within easy reach. 2 days a week, I took a hand-to-hand combat course taught by an ex-Marine who didn't go easy on me because I was the only woman in his class. If someone else was in my house right now, they'd be leaving in a body bag. Hey, that's hot. I love that. I love a strong, independent woman who's willing to off a man. I have stickers for this channel that literally say, I love when abusers get abused. If you're gonna come at me sideways, you're gonna be in a body bag. Right? I love. In chapter 4, we go back to Josh's POV, and he installed like a secret camera into the phone charger in her bedroom. And so he's watching her as she comes home and sees all this stuff. He expects her to immediately call the cops, and instead is so impressed and so turned on by her confidence and her like, no nonsense, I'll end anybody who tries to hurt me, or I'll, end people who try to break into my house thing. But also he says, okay, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm glad that I made the order for her security system, because all she does is prop chairs against the various doors to try and keep people out. And Josh thinks about how much of a turn on this is that she is so confident, independent, taking care of herself. Not that I had anything against meeker women, they just weren't for me. In fact, they downright terrified me because they'd been my dad's preferred prey. I'd never even dated one, let alone slept with one, on the off chance that I shared his proclivities. I struck to strong, borderline aggressive women instead, ones who had a better chance of fighting me off if I ever, well, I'd rather not think about that, while Allie still filled my computer screen. I too love borderline aggressive women. That's why I wanted Allie to be all for me. Not just because she was a beautiful woman with a mask kink who regularly propositioned my alter ego, but because technically she stalked me first, or she tried to if the search history I discovered when I hacked into her laptop was anything to go by. Her searches including, how do I find someone from social media? Who is the faceless man from TikTok? The faceless man's other social media accounts? Is there AI software to find people based on their tattoos? See? She'd started it. And yes, I was aware that argument wouldn't hold up in the court of law, but this was the hill that I chose to die on. The belief that Allie was a little up too, just enough that she might hesitate before reporting me, and if I were really lucky enough to play along with all of the things that I had planned for her. After she does a sweep of her house, she internally is like, okay, cool. He filmed a video in my bedroom. He left his mask on my bed. What if he is actually a serial killer who breaks into women's homes, and this is how he like gets his victims? He like lures them. So she goes through his social media page, watches every single video. All of his videos happen in the same 2 or 3 spaces. It's like the bathroom, the same bedroom, like same furniture clearly, or the same couch and same like, stuff in the background. Very clearly same locations. So when she sits on her bed after clearing her house and after stalking his social media, she says, so he's probably not a serial killer who uses the app to lure his victims. She says this to her cat. And Josh hears this over the, little spy cam. And I reared back. Was that what she thought? Fuck, that was the absolute last thing that I wanted. How do I fix this? I was half tempted to send her a DM explaining myself, but how would that work? Hey, Allie, it's me, the man who broke into your house. I was just watching you through the camera I hid in your room, and I wanted to let you know that you are correct. I am not, in fact, a serial killer. Jesus Christ. And so she ends up messaging Josh through the app, and she says, hey, random question, but like, did you break into my home? He's vague. He plays a little dumb about it, because he's like, if this ever actually does go to law enforcement, I would like to have some type of plausible deniability. So they kind of go into this flirty banter. And he's watching on the camera as she more and more gets turned on, and this turns into a spice scene. And he says, oh my God, Jesus, okay, I didn't want to do that. Like, I got to draw the line somewhere. I don't want to watch her XYZ. So he clicks out of his camera app on his laptop as quickly as possible to not invade her privacy to that degree. Chapter 5, Allie, she's turned on by this whole situation, right? Obviously. She likes what's happening. But the next day, she wakes up and has a little bit more realizations of, this is a little sketchy. This is a little concerning, even though it was really kind of hot. Maybe I kind of liked it, but also I'm really concerned about this stalker guy getting into my house, knowing my name. Like, he called her Alyssa, which she goes by Allie on absolutely everything. So she's kind of uncomfortable about a lot of that. So she reaches out to Tyler, her ex that we mentioned earlier, and says, hey, wasn't your roommate a really techie guy, well-known techie guy? Can you have him message me? I have something going on. She doesn't know what's happening. In chapter 6, we get a lot of conflicting feelings. This is from Josh's POV. He continues to stalk Allie, right? Through the little phone charger camera that he has, and he's also hacked into her laptop and is watching her through her laptop camera. As she is getting more and more concerned about a stalker, about how the masked man or the faceless man found her, she starts to realize, wait a second, oh my God, he might be able to see me through my laptop camera. Does a bunch of Googling about how to find stalkers, how stalkers might track you, XYZ. She grabs a piece of tape to cover up her laptop camera. Josh, realizing that this might happen, direct messages her and says, don't. She says, what the fuck are you hello? Can you see me? And he responds and he's like, yeah. So she covers it up anyway because she's like, wow, this is actually genuinely psychotic. What is even happening right now? A little bit of back and forth. She's like, can you hear me? He says, yes. She asks another question and she's verbally speaking and he's responding through DMs and it's kind of weird. He's still being good about keeping it vague though. So who knows what he's referencing if this were to go to the police or whatever. But it gets to a point where she calls Tyler, right? She messaged him last night in the last chapter. This time she calls him and she says, hey, no, for real, can you have me talk to your roommate? I need to speak with him. I need to figure some stuff out. Tyler, ever the gentleman, says, hey, are you good? I know we only hooked up and it was 2 months ago, but are you in danger? Do you need to call the police? She says, no, it's fine. I don't want to talk about it. I need Josh. I need him to look something up for me, okay? Tyler says, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll get something set up for you. She says, okay, thank God. Hangs up in time to receive a bunch of deliveries. The first round of deliveries is an entire floral shop worth of flowers. The reason being, Josh felt really bad about freaking her out. But she, as more and more come, is getting incredibly pissed off because she's like, A, I don't even really like flowers. They die anyway. This is kind of a frivolous gift. And B, where am I going to put these? And so she has the delivery driver people take it to one of the nearby hospitals to give it out to patients and nurses and whatever. And it's going to cost her $50 for them to deliver it. And so she DMs the faceless man and says, hey, cool gift, I guess, douchebag, but you just cost me money. He, listening through the laptop, Venmos her, or whatever money app transfers her, enough money to cover that. And she says, thanks, I guess. Annoyingly, the next round of deliveries of items that she gets is, again, from him, and it is a bunch of security stuff. One of which being a camera finder. So she does the little camera finder all around her house and discovers the phone charger camera. And she says, you sick fuck. I thought we were cool. I was actually kind of turned on by this. Genuinely, you were kind of tricking me into believing that you were a good guy and actually cared about me and taking care of me. But clearly, you've got some sketchy shit going on and you like watched me, do like inappropriate things last night. And he's like, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. She still pulls the camera anyway and begins ignoring him. In chapter 7, Allie can't help herself. And so she looks at the faceless man's social media content, like it's another day, it's another upload. And in it, he posts this like really depressed, like staring through the window, just sad boy content with the caption like when she's mad at you. And Allie looks at the comments and all the people are like, oh my God, baby, I would never be mad at you if I was your girlfriend, if I was so lucky to beat her. Allie comments and she says, maybe she had a reason. Immediately, like seconds after Allie comments, he likes her comment and follows her, which might not seem like a big deal, except the fact he never engages with any of his audience and does not follow anybody else. So again, within seconds, the parasocial insanity just like is set ablaze. All of these women are commenting like, I'm so jealous of you, you dumb B word, how dare you be mad at him, I would forgive him in an instant, you're not grateful enough, you don't really blah, 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 blah. Just craziness, right? Sending her hate messages and she has like immediate follower requests and a whole bunch of other things. And so she says, you know what, actually, put my phone right back in put it right back in my locker. I don't want to deal with that. That's actually insane. Before she does that though, she realizes there's something else he did that was indicative of him watching her at work. Like, again, she's on the job. So she looks up at the camera, like in the corner of the room, in the break room where she is, and flips it off. And then he texts her and says, rude. She's like, you're so creepy. I can't believe you would do this. Why would you like my comment? He says, I'd stop if you tell me. Like, just tell me stop and I'll knock it off. And she's thinking about it and she's like, I don't think I want him to stop though. Like, I think I'm kind of into this. But before she can finalize that thought or think about it or respond or anything, she gets a pager notification that there has been a mass shooting. All in all, at the very end of this, she has been awake for over 40 hours, attending to everything that's going on. It's been traumatic. There's been crazy stuff that she's seen and witnessed and had to help with. She's exhausted. It's snowing outside. The roads are crap. It is like genuinely just a very dangerous situation. And so when she finally is able to make it out to her car at the end of this godforsaken shift, she is thinking to herself, this is gonna suck. I'm gonna have to like dust all of the snow off my car. I'm gonna have, unbury my car from the snow and scrape it off and all of this. But when she gets there, when she gets to her car, it's already running. It's already scraped. The snow's off of it. It's dug out of the parking spot. And as she gets closer, she realizes that there is somebody in the driver's seat. What do you mean? Chapter 8, from Josh's point of view, he said he is acknowledging that he has always had such a hard time with empathy. But the more and more that he talks to Allie and the more and more that he watches her through the hospital feed, he's able to pick up on her needs and he's able to feel bad for her and want to help her and want to like make her day better. And so when he was watching on the cameras and saw this horrible shift that she was on, he was like, okay, I have to do something to help her. Like, I want to make her life easy. And especially with the snow, So he took an Uber. It took the Uber like 40 minutes, slipping and sliding down these roads. And that was with all-wheel drive, right? All-wheel drive in an SUV. It took them forever to get to the hospital. And she drives like a little, I don't know, some type of little like more compact car with like probably front-wheel drive. And so he got there so he could drive her home, right? So he is doing a little reflecting on this. She is skeeved the frick out, as one would be, as I expect one to be. And I'm actually really, really happy that the author acknowledges this. Allie is like, hey, what the F is happening? He's in the passenger seat. He rolls it down a crack. And instead of responding to her, he texts her because he's afraid that she will recognize his voice. He's like, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just here to take you home. Like, you had a bad day. You shouldn't be driving. After a very extended amount of time, he's able to convince her to get into the car. She gets into the passenger seat. On the passenger seat, there is a gun and there is a knife. And he says, hey, if I do anything funny, here's weapons of your choice. You can take it out on me. I'm just here to take you home. Okay. In his chapter, he acknowledges that there's only blanks in the gun. But still, there's still a knife, still a very, very sharp knife. So she gets in the car and like immediately picks it up and like holds it to his side as they are driving. And he continues to not say anything to her whatsoever. She's in the car, everything's good. He texts her and he's like, I'm going to take you home. Here's the route. I'm going to pull it up on my phone so you know exactly where I'm going. If we deviate from the route, feel free to, unalive me. But also, super slow-mo. He's like, don't freak out. He reaches back into the back seat, grabs a little lunchbox, and he tells her that he brought snacks. He brought some apples and some granola and some other little treats for her because it's been a long day and he's being so considerate. Okay. All right. She doesn't want to eat it because she's like, okay, so what if he poisoned this? So then he like lifts up his mask a little bit and like eats an apple. And he looks back at her and she's just like staring at his jawline. Girl. So then she accepts that, okay, these apples are good. So like holding a freaking weapon to his side, eating little apples in granola trail mix crap. And it gets to a point where she's like, she is impressed, turned on, flattered. She's being taken care of by this guy. And she has, again, a guy that she has been fantasizing over for months now in front of her. And she says, I want to see it. He said, in a mask, can't talk, knife to his side. He says, She says, yeah, I want to see it. There's some spice that ensues when he pulls it out of his pants as he's driving. And she, in the heat of the moment, ends up like stabbing him in the hand. I'm trying to think of how this would have happened. Where are the hands? I don't want to think about the logistics of this, but I'm still really, really confused about how he got slashed in the hand. But that ends up happening and that just like, elevates the experience or whatever. Y'all are crazy for that one. And he's lost in the sauce. She's enjoying herself. What is it? So right at the end of this grand experience, the little Siri voice on the navigation pops up and it's like, recalibrating, you have missed your turn. And then it like redirects them. Allie pops up and she says, oh, did you go off track? You didn't follow directions? I don't reward bad behavior. And then she realizes, oh, I stabbed you. Why didn't you say anything? Jesus Christ. And so in chapter 7, she like forces him to come inside with her and she bandages up his hand, goes all nurse mode. Not even bandage. She literally has to stitch it, which in her state, you're not allowed to stitch wounds unless you are a like advanced nurse, and she's not one. So it's this whole thing. And she says, hey, I'm going to fix this. It's going to scar. It's going to be ugly. Don't tell anybody that I did this for you or I will literally lose my license. He says, it's fine. It'll be beautiful. It'll remind me of you. Some weird shit like that. Okay. More tension, more flirty banter, more feeling guilty, more just her staring at his mask that he's had on this whole time. And he has been talking to her through text messages. And it's just kind of weird, but also like low-key kind of hot. And so when she goes to bed that night, she realizes, you know what, actually, maybe my life's been kind of crazy. I don't know why else I would ever agree to any of the craziness that's happening in my life lately. I probably need some time off. 2 years. She has been consistently working in the ER and has not taken any days off. She shoots a message to her boss about taking 2 weeks off, like here pretty soon. She gives like a little bit of notice and she's like, hey, I need a break. And realizing that she has not taken any time off because she feels guilty. There is some very, very good character development and establishment of Allie's mom died when she was 16. They were out driving. They ended up getting into a car accident while Allie was driving. Like her mom was teaching her how to drive stick shift, I believe. Got a little bit too faithful maybe in her ability to drive on the highway using stick shift. Got into a car accident. Her mother passed away beside her. And so Allie became a nurse with the idea of I couldn't help my mom in that moment. So every person that I help in the hospital or I help survive these traumatic injuries is kind of me giving back to not being able to save my mom, right? There's this like internalized pressure and this internalized kind of perfectionism and pressure that she puts on herself of needing to save lives. So she realizes all of this in this storm of emotions and in this storm of whatever, that she can take off time. Her coworkers will be able to save lives. And it's actually very not selfish for her to believe that, but kind of, right? She's like, okay, I acknowledge it's very selfish of me to think that if I was there, I could save someone else's life because that means that I don't believe in my coworkers to be able to save lives. But maybe it's a FOMO, like a fear of missing out on saving lives. There is some very, very good introspection that happens in this book that, again, makes these characters feel so real. It's so good, actually. The next day, right, she goes to bed that night after all of these thoughts. When she wakes up and she's about to have to go to work, she realizes that she's gonna have to shovel her driveway, dig out her car yet again. But when she goes out, she opens the door, it's already done. She sees her neighbors out there, close friends of hers. They're a little bit older, but they're kind of like a mom and dad figure to her since she lost both of her parents at a very young age. She talks to them, and the wife says, oh, you got a little hot boyfriend that takes care of you. Look at you. Why didn't you tell us you were dating somebody? And she tries to play it off, kind of thinking, I wish they would tell me what he looked like. I wish I could ask what he looked like because I'm really curious, but I just have to sit here and play dumb about it because that would be weird. And she's very, she's thankful, but she's also kind of sad that the faceless man took care of everything for her. And she's just kind of in this weird predicament. But she goes inside and she thanks him for, taking care of this for her. And then almost simultaneously, she gets a text message from her ex, Tyler, saying, hey, do you have time before you go to work today? Josh is able to meet you in 30 minutes. If you're able to come over, you can meet him and you guys can talk about XYZ, whatever you need from him. And she says, yeah, totally, I can make it work. In chapter 10, from Josh's point of view, we get a little bit more insight about his relationship with Tyler. He and Tyler have been best friends since they were little kids, and Tyler has stuck with him through thick and thin, learning about Josh's father, dealing with the trials, the fallout. They even moved across the country together after it came out at one of their colleges about Josh's father. A whole thing, right? A bunch of shenanigans. They're BFFs through thick and thin. However, Josh is a little bit more type A recluse IT guy versus Tyler, who is very outgoing, jockish, obsessed with his body, and, hooks up with a bunch of women. Behind the scenes, though, Tyler is very loving and does this whole vetting thing about he doesn't take any women to the house that are into true crime. That is one of his very beginning vetting questions whenever he's talking to women, so that he doesn't bring anybody around that would endanger Josh or make him uncomfortable. It's kind of cute, right? Regardless though, Tyler and Josh have this back and forth bromance moment. Eventually he leaves, and then right before Allie shows up, Josh is going through and he's like, okay. I can't let her into my bedroom. I can't let her into this other room or anywhere where she would see things that are in the photos, in the TikToks. I can't let her know that I'm the masked man. So he has to wear a hoodie, make sure all of his tattoos are covered. But he has tattoos all the way down onto his hands. And so he ends up putting on fingerless gloves as if that's not weird as hell to wear. And he's like, it's fine. I'll turn down the AC really, really low and open up a couple windows and make it really freezing in here and tell her that the furnace broke. Okay. So that's the plan. He's going to pretend to be really, really cold. He's going to be short with her and not let her into these spaces. They're just going to stay in the living room, right? Good plan. She gets there. She met Josh one time, like after her and Tyler hooked up. The following morning, she woke up really early and Josh was in the kitchen making coffee, and she tried to talk to him, but he was very like standoffish, don't look at me, because he didn't want her to recognize him from the like movie documentary thing about his dad. So he was very, again, avoidant and standoffish. And so she never really got a good look at him. But this time, knock, 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 opens the door. She says, "Oh my God, you're like really tall and really hot and really muscular." And immediately she knows who he is. She's had a little inkling suspicion this entire time. Because how many 6'4" muscled baddies are there out in the world, right? So she's kind of always thought, and she also knew it had to be somebody close enough to her to know her name was Allie or to know certain things about her. So she always kind of thought it was Josh and just kind of went along with it. But now is her chance to confirm it, right? So she goes and shakes his hand and has to shake hands with his hand that is stitched, right? The one that she cut open last night. So she grabs it particularly hard. Death grips his hand to try and get a reaction. But he knew this was coming. So he plays it off, internalizes the pain from it, doesn't give her a reaction. And he was like, "Wow, that's a nice grip there." And tries to make her feel guilty about thinking that he's anything but a totally normal guy. She comes in, they sit on the couch together. He completely wiped his computer of everything except for like quote unquote work stuff, so that if she got nosy and decided to snoop through it while he stepped out of the room, she wouldn't find anything. Like, he has really gone above and beyond to try to sanitize the space that she will be in, right? She comes in, they talk, she explains what her issue is, and she says, "Hey, I need to figure out who this guy is. Here's the link to his TikTok." He puts it in through this code. It pops up with a bunch of like lines, and it's going through stuff on his computer, and it looks really fancy, but it's not really doing anything, and he admits as much. He's like, "Yeah, it looks really fancy, but all it's doing is tracking an IP address, but it's not the real IP. It's actually going to link to another faceless masked man's account out in Colorado because I don't want her doing like vigilante justice or some weird thing like that," which I love. Again, I made this comment in The Predator by Runix, where the main female character was supposed to be this IT genius that was double dog dared to write a code that would bring down the mafia and would bring down the world and was going to be this crazy thing. And it was very vaguely talked about. At least in this one, yet again, with everything else in the book, there's a level of self-awareness there that I appreciate so much, and knowledge, and at least enough to be like, yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, or, oh yeah, we're doing just enough for this to be silly. And it's a self-aware silliness that didn't give me the ick. It just made me laugh, or made me be able to read through something happening and not roll my eyes at it. You know what I mean? I don't know. So anyway, he puts this thing up on the computer. As it's scanning through his computer, he's like, "Oh, hey, do you want some coffee?" She says, "Yeah." He steps out of the room to make it, and she decides to text him because he left his phone on the coffee table next to her. So she's like, "Oh, I'm going to text him and see if this is the faceless man, because this is obviously I'm suspicious of." Nothing happens. His phone doesn't light up, and she gets an instant response from the faceless man, and they have a little bit of conversation. And so when he comes back in with the coffee, she is kind of relieved. Like, she has kind of a sense of like weight off of her shoulders, but also she looks a little disappointed because ultimately, from his POV, he has a burner phone that he's been messaging her on, and he had silenced it and put it out in the other room that he had locked, and also had made a AI software system that would respond to her text messages, at least for like a couple of times. And from her POV, she's like, "I was really kind of hoping that Josh was the masked man because he's like really hot." He's really hot and he knows me, and this would actually work out really, really good for us if he was this guy. That'd be pretty awesome. But they keep the mystery going, right? In the text messages that she is having with the masked or the faceless man, it is like pretty much, "I'll see you tonight." She asks if he has any plans. What are his plans for her? And he says short term or long term. And she's like, "I don't know, whatever." And he says, "I guess you'll find out the short term pretty soon." And so when she goes to work that night, has another particularly bad day, and is coming home, she's thinking to herself, I low-key kind of hope that the faceless man is at my house. I kind of hope he's waiting for me when I get home tonight because, you know, naughty naughty. She gets home and he's not there, and she is incredibly disappointed. Turns out he planned to be there. Like, Josh was all in. He was going to play this whole thing. He had been watching her all day through his little cameras. He was being a little stalker boy. But he fell asleep. Like, he had just passed out and had slept through the whole thing that was going to happen. He has insomnia, and then also with stalking her at work and with doing a bunch of other stuff, his sleep schedule is just all kinds of goofed up. So he missed his cue to get there. He wakes up to some alarms because she has the alarm system at her house now, and wakes up to the alarms saying that her front door has been opened. So he's like, oh, frick, I have to rush over there. As he's rushing over there, homegirl decides, oh, I feel like the faceless man stood me up. I'm going to plug my phone charger camera thing into the outlet and put on a little show and make him feel bad for not being here. And it turns into a whole spice thing, dude. Literally so much of this book was just spice or innuendos or very NC-17 flirting. Before she can finish the show, the power cuts out, and it turns out the faceless man, Josh, has hacked into the power grid or temporarily caused a power outage so that he's able to break into her house. Escalates. You can paint the picture, or you can buy the book and read it yourself. And in chapter 12, we're in Josh's POV again, and he's talking about how they did a lot of stuff the night before. A lot of stuff. They didn't have full out spice. They did like literally everything but that, because Josh feels guilty that she doesn't know the truth about him. So he's like, yeah, I don't want to have full-blown if she doesn't know who I am and who my father is and etc. It makes me feel guilty. Not a conscience, not some morals in the main questionable, morally gray character. And so the next morning, he's wearing the mask. Like, he wears the mask all night and ends up like sleeping next to her. Wakes up the next morning, she gets in the shower, he goes out and makes her breakfast and makes her eggs and bacon. He still has her video camera turned on in her bedroom so that he can see what's going on. And when she gets out of her bathroom, she decided the night before or at some point where she was like, you know what? I'm going to get back at the stalker. And that's part of the reason why she talked to Josh in the first place, because she wanted to figure out who the faceless man was and stalk him in return. She was like, oh, you want to play games? You want to make me feel uncomfortable? You want to break into my house and do XYZ? I'm going to do it to you, okay? She bought some trackers, like an air tag, basically. And she decides that she's going to slip it into the faceless man's bag so that she can track him, figure out where he lives, and execute this plan. Obviously doesn't work because he's in her kitchen watching her and watching this happen, and he laughs at it. He's a little turned on by it, let's not lie to each other, about somebody who's, you know, defending herself and getting this stuff together. But he says, okay, noted. Gives her the eggs and bacon. There's a bunch of shells in the eggs, and the bacon is really undercooked, and it's really, really gross, but it's the thought that counts, I guess, maybe, possibly. And so Allie doesn't really eat it. But when he leaves, he gets into his car and he accesses her tracker, or he accesses her camera on his phone, and he's watching her as he starts to drive around. And he sees that she pulls up her laptop, right? So he's watching her track him on her laptop. And he decides that with the tracker in his bag, he's going to drive out through these various neighborhoods and drive out LOL. And then as he finishes the L, he throws the air tag out of the car and is laughing his ass off as Allie starts to lose her mind about it. She's very, very frustrated with him writing out this LOL and thinking that he's gotten the best of her. And so she says, hey, Josh, guess what? I have your DNA. He's a little intimidated by this. He's like, not my government name. So whenever she went over to Josh and Tyler's apartment and he was like helping her look up the faceless man, he was wearing that sweater. And so she got some hair off of it. And then she has the bloody gauze from when she stitched up his hand at her apartment. She played it off when he was there. She was like, oh yeah, I can make you some frozen pizza or something. And ended up baggying the bloody bandages and throwing them in the freezer instead. And so she's like, yeah, guess what? I have hair from your sweater, Josh, and I have the bloody gauze from when I stitched up the faceless man's hand. I'm going to run a DNA test. I know exactly who you are, and I'm going to prove it. Damn, okay. However, Josh is laughing because that was actually Tyler's sweater, because he knew that she was smart and she was going to pull some shenanigans like that. So he's like, yeah, obviously he can't really respond because, you know, he's stalking her through a camera, but he to himself is laughing like, yeah, girl, good luck. In chapter 13, Allie has given the DNA samples to Valerie, one of the women that she works with down in the lab. Valerie is going to process these particles, try and find DNA, whatever. While doing that, she goes on about her day, which involves watching another video from the Faceless Man where he is reflecting on fighting with his partner. And there's a bunch of comments tagging her on TikTok of like, oh my God, I would forgive him if I were you. You're so ungrateful. Again, more and more just like negative backtalk, whatever going on from the masses. And then toward the middle end of her shift, she looks up and there is a guy that nobody is treating. One of her nurse friends, Tanya, that we've mentioned earlier in passing, Tanya says, hey, Allie, stay the F away from that guy. He's the rapist that we had to deal with a couple of nights ago. That's why nobody is going over to him. That's why nobody's dealing with him. We're waiting for one of the male nurses to come in, be like available to process this man. Allie takes it upon herself of it's going to take a long time. You know, we only have one on staff and he's doing some other things. I'll deal with it. I'm strong enough. I can handle it. Whatever. I don't want anyone to bear this burden. So she approaches this guy. His name is Brandon Bloom. As she is walking over toward him to do the final intake, there's a phone call at the nurse's station. Tanya picks it up. She says, hey, Allie, there's someone on the phone that wants to talk to you. Allie knows who it is, and she says, tell him I'm fine. Okay. Obviously, it was Josh on the other line because he is clearly watching her through the security cameras. She ignores it and she continues to press on to Brandon Bloom. Approaches him, talks to him. He is very charming. If you have ever met an abuser, you know the exact personality. You know the charm that they can turn on and off, and that's exactly what she witnesses. Where she's like, my radar of bad people, bad vibes is honed 1000% because I see bad people every day. She's like, this guy is sick. He's sickly sweet. I could see where people think that he's charismatic, but there's something in the eyes that's missing. And the point being, especially of bringing him up and bringing up this like trait and talking about her ability to pick up on people's bad vibes, is because it is justifying Josh's behavior. So that way we relate to Allie in such a way that we're like, oh yeah, she would totally pick up if Josh was a bad dude. Clearly he's fine. Clearly he's good. We're not wrong for our judgment in him. You know what I mean? So anyway, so she's like, yeah, this guy's super icky, super gross. She keeps her distance. She stays away from him. She doesn't answer any of his questions. She gives him a fake name. It comes to a point where he tries to grab her and she escapes his grasp. And then she gets up in his face and pretty much calls him like a tiny piece of shit. And he starts whining and crying and bawling his eyes out and calling for his lawyer because, oh my God, this nurse threatened me. He was setting her up for failure. He was trying to be able to sue the hospital yet again to be able to get away with assaulting women and hurting and R-ing women. So he gets to this position. This happens. Allie kind of falls for it. She's super, super pissed, but she continues on about her night. The only thing that stops her from continuing her shift is almost immediately after there's a car accident that comes in. A woman in her late 40s, dark-haired, on the brink of dying, comes in through the ER. Allie sees her, realizes this is literally my mom if that pole was 6 inches to the right or to the left. And if this was my mom, if the pole had hit her 6 inches to the right, she would have survived. I'm literally looking in my mother's eyes if I were to have been a nurse, XYZ years ago. Incredibly tragic. So hard for somebody to process. And so she says, I need to go home. Actually, after almost being assaulted by a known, artist and seeing somebody who could quite literally be my mother, I need a break. She goes to her locker, she gets her things together almost immediately, and she rushes the heck out of the hospital. Josh is, of course, watching through the hospital feeds, and he can't get there in time to offer to drive her home again. But he knows pretty quickly, obviously, she's not doing hot. Everything has escalated so quickly, he doesn't really know what happened. He's like, is this because of what Brandon said? I don't really know. She deals with car accident people all the time. I'm not sure what is happening, but he knows in his heart of hearts that he needs to be there. Like, she needs him. So she drives home immediately. He texts her. He offers to give her a ride. She ignores it. He offers XYZ. She ignores it. So she gets home. He makes the executive decision. She needs me. She just can't vocalize it. Shows up to her house, breaks into it. He stands in the doorway when she comes out of the shower. He has a wine glass and I think some tea of like, hey, I don't know which one that you need right now, but here you go, baby. I got whatever you need. She freaks out. Screaming, obviously, because she's like, how did you get in here? What's even happening? This is creepy AF. He drops the glasses because he got so scared as well. But ultimately, long story short, he is able to talk her or like coax her into opening up about what happened with her mother and how she blames herself for not being able to save her and a whole bunch of other things, like just in general, just bad stuff. And then also talks more about the Brandon Bloom guy, where Josh explains, hey, I called you and I told you not to go near Brandon because I was able to look him up on the internet and I was able to link him to a bunch of crimes. He's a serial killer. He's a piece of shit. Like, he harms women all the time. She's like, yeah, I know. I picked up the vibe. And also, P.S. by the way, he is a piece of shit. I wish that I could watch you kill him. Ayo. I love when abusers get abused. Josh says, all right, I'll take care of it. And this leads into what I had kind of semi-referenced earlier about some explicit actions happening with a knife, or rather a knife handle. Yeah, totally, dude. That's so cool for you. I love that for you guys. Couldn't be me. But he does, as he is, inviting her to do things. He's like, don't worry, I sanitized it. I'm so glad that we are addressing the general health concerns. I'm so glad in this book that we are acknowledging things, but also, hello? Chapter 15 is literally just a detailed spice scene. I don't have anything to add there. In chapter 16, after they have the spice, I was dreading that conversation. Allie had already forgiven me for so much, put up with so much. How could I possibly ask her to continue trusting me after she found out who my dad was and started questioning why the son of a notorious serial killer would cover himself in blood and film knife-wielding thirst traps? She'd probably assume I idolized him when nothing could be further from the truth. Josh, after this spicy time, the first time when he came over and they hooked up and he stayed the night or whatever, he was wearing the full mask. It was made of like hard plastic and LED lights, and he had to keep it on the entire night because he didn't want her to find out who he was. And he learned a very, very hard lesson of A, it's claustrophobic, and B, he'll break out if he keeps it on all night. So he decides this night, when he breaks into her house, that he's gonna wear a balaclava. He ends up falling asleep after the spice scene, and then he wakes up to a blaring alarm on his phone. There's somebody at her back door. Somebody is trying to break into the house. They have a very, very combative back and forth where Allie says, hey, I'm going to help you. We're going to figure out what's going on. And he says, I don't give a shit. You're going to stay in bed. You're going to lock yourself in the bedroom and be safe and stay safe, and I'll handle whatever's happening. So he goes out there. The person breaks into the kitchen, finds out it's Brandon Bloom, the guy from the ER the other night, the rapist, the super problematic guy, comes in. He immediately, he being Josh, beats the crap out of the guy. Homie passes out. And then he hears some whimpering behind him. And so Josh turns around, and turns out Allie did not listen to him. She did not stay in the room. She is standing right there witnessing everything that's happening. And he says, girl, what the hell are you doing here? And she says, I heard some punching. I didn't know what was happening, so I came out because I wanted to make sure you were okay. She's wielding a gun. At least she's coming correct. to a situation like this, you know what I'm saying? But she ends up like beating the crap out of Brendan. She doesn't shoot him, but she kicks him. She sure does teach that man a lesson, and so does Josh, which again, I love when abusers get abused. I love justice. I love revenge. This is where the book gets spicy. For a lot of people, spicy in a like plot way, not spicy in like a way. Throughout the entire book, there has obviously been a level of spice, intention, and like explicit scenes between or individually of these characters. When you get to chapter 17, this is the first time that the book finally gets to a plot point that is genuinely interesting, where you're like, what is gonna happen next? And so in chapter 17, they have a conversation with each other where they say, hey, cool, Brandon, he was gonna attack you in your own house. How do we get rid of him? How do we get rid of his body? How do we make it sound or make it look like you're innocent? Josh gets a whole game plan together. She, as a nurse, understanding DNA and understanding health implications, makes some other suggestions. They get a whole thing together. Love. Love. So ultimately, they end up throwing Brandon in the trunk of her car, okay? With the plan that they are going to take him to the most recent victim's house. So okay. That was the time travel. A couple of days ago, a week ago, Brandon ended up in the ER with his partner for SAing her and like physically assaulting her. He was there with her. A couple days after that, he was in the ER again because one of her brothers, I think, assaulted him so badly that he needed medical attention, but it was payback for him R-ing his sister. You know what I'm saying? So now, after Allie helped him recover from being beaten up for R-ing this other woman, dude comes to, I don't know, get some revenge, assault another woman, whatever the logic is there. He comes to Allie's house. They harm him super, super badly. Her plan is, let's knock him out. We'll duct tape him. We'll throw him on the doorstep of the other woman's family and they'll take care of the rest. We want Brandon to be dead. We don't want him to be alive anymore because he's just going to continue hurting people. But also us, Allie and Josh, I don't think we have it in us to actually fully unalive somebody. So let's go ahead and take him to these other people's property and they'll deal with it. I mean, that's one solution, I guess. So that's what they do, right? They baggy him up. They throw some duct tape on his mouth. They throw him in the trunk of the car. They play some games. Josh turns the power off on the block for a couple of minutes so that they're able to get the body in the trunk, and then they start to drive away. It's a whole thing. Orchestrated, whatever. They drive away. They end up at the property of that family, like 45 minutes away in the outskirts of the city. When they open up the trunk, turns out Josh had put the duct tape over not just the guy's mouth, but the guy's nose, and he is now dead. They accidentally killed the guy, manslaughtered the guy. So they end up, both of them, Allie and Josh, have this internal and also external debate with each other of Allie thinking, I never thought I could be a murderer. This is crazy, but also he deserved it. But also I don't really feel bad about it because at least now I know he's dead. And I would have always lived with this questioning of if this was the right decision or if they would have called the police. And then Josh is thinking, oh my God, I put the duct tape on his mouth. I accidentally put it on his nose and now he's dead. Did I do that on purpose? Did I channel my father? Am I actually a serial killer? Do I actually enjoy death of other people? Did I subconsciously mean to do this, right? He's having like this existential dilemma, and she's also, to some degree having an existential dilemma. Not so much though, because she's used to death. She's used to seeing this. Josh is not. So he starts like puking in the bushes, and then she has to take over of like, it's okay, buddy, just get in the car, we'll figure it out. He says, the fuck do you mean we'll figure it out? She says, baby, you must not have researched me that well. My last name is Capachului? That's not it. Hold on, I'm scrolling. She says, Capalucci? Sure. She says, baby, you must not have understood me when I said I was Italian. I got some family. I got some family in the mafia that can help clean this up. In which case, I said, girl, we ain't ever said nothing about a mafia. Why are we bringing it up right now? Not to say it's racist, but I'm just saying that shit sounds a little racist. You know what I mean? And so she acknowledges that. I guess it's acknowledged. That makes it okay. Is that what that means? So she's like, yeah, Josh, don't worry. My uncle was a outcast of the family because he kept along with this whole mafia thing when the rest of us left it. We weren't a part of it, but he was. But he's like very much about family. And he always said if I needed anything, if anything ever happened, I could go to him. So we'll get it figured out. We'll he'll help us hide this body that's in the trunk right now. Let me drive. I'll drive over there while you just like keep puking out the window. Girl, what the hell? So this is also, I feel like, reinforces this idea that this like stalker guy is not a total psychopath. He's just a guy with some misplaced feelings. He's just a little cutie. He's just a little cutie guy that just doesn't know how to express his feelings. We'll get to it in more detail here in a minute, but dead body in the trunk. She's driving. He's freaking out. She says, hold it together, my guy. We're going to go to my uncle's house. He's going to figure everything out. Everything's going to be fine. In addition to that, that's my uncle Nico. My cousin, I think Greg, works at the hospital. I got him the job as part of the whole like family bonding thing, and also part of the whole mafia pressure, where her cousin works at the hospital. She like covered for him to get the job. And then now there's like some secret sneaky things that are happening where the mafia just happens to get rid of bodies or override documentation of how people die. You picking up what I'm putting down? You know what I mean? So she's like, yeah, Nico, Greg, whoever the hell, they owe me. We can figure this out. Let's just go there with this dead body in our trunk. Oh my God. As they roll up to her family's estate, property, whatever, he didn't expect them to be in a mansion, and so they roll up to the property with gate guards and security and all this other stuff, and he's like, what in the hell? As they approach the property and he realizes the security and the like implications of getting help from them, he says, you know what, actually let me reach into my go bag real quick that I keep on me all the time. And he applies a fake mustache. And she says, what are you doing? You look like a star. Are you kidding me right now? He says, don't worry about it. We can seek help from them. We can do whatever. I just don't want any media involved. She says, we'll unpack that later, but okay, for now. Let's circle back to that eventually. But cool. So they go through security. Security waves them in once she, gives her full name. And she's like, yeah, I'm the niece of blah, blah, blah. The uncle is waiting in the driveway. They open up one of the garage doors. She says, hey, I have a problem. Blah, 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 blah. Uncle says, hey, not out here. They go into the house. She says, yeah, I got like a body in the trunk of the car. The uncle says, you got a body? You brought a dead body in the trunk of your car to my house? She says, yeah, I was supposed to come here if I ever had trouble. He says, woman? Y'all really, are you kidding me? You brought a body into my house when I'm being investigated by the feds. You honest to God thought that it would be a good idea to bring a dead body in your trunk into my household? So he goes inside freaking out. Calls all of his sons. Primarily the ones that we care about. There's a son named Greg and there's a son named Junior. Greg comes downstairs. He's the one that Allie got the job at the hospital for, like he's a janitor. He comes downstairs. He says, hey Josh, you're gonna sit over here, hang out with my dad, talk to all of them. I'm going to get in the car with Allie. I'm gonna pretend to be you. I'll throw on the sunglasses. I'll bump the seat up real high and we're gonna roll. Allie and Josh don't want to be separated, but turns out when you roll up to the mafia, you don't really have many choices. So they press on. They go about these things. Josh stays behind with Nico and all of Allie's cousins. It's a little bit more tension. They're a little bit more like, hey, what are you doing with my niece? What are you doing entering the family? yeah, we're not close necessarily, but also that's still my family. He goes on to explain it as much as he can without implicating himself or Allie. So he's like, yeah, we were at home and this guy broke in. I killed him before he could hurt her. And the family, they could almost clap. They say, amen, brother. You protected one of our own. Okay, I guess we'll accept you. And we cut to chapter 18, where that's kind of what's happening. It's like an interim chapter. Josh is realizing how much that he loves Allie, how much he wants to be in a relationship with her, how cool he is with her, but also we are on our way in an undercover utility vehicle to break into Josh's house to erase any evidence of Allie at his house, but as we roll up to it, there's already police there. Allie's cousin, upon seeing the police, says, hey, Josh, you want to tell me why there's police here? You got 10 seconds to explain to me why we all just risked everything to be here. Tell the whole story top to bottom. What is going on? So he does, right? So in chapter 19, we cut to Allie's perspective, and she is going over to Josh and Tyler's house. Her house is being fumigated, quote unquote, while her cousins go through and clean it up, erase, any trace of Brandon dude being there and blood, etc. She can't go home. So Josh calls Tyler, gives him a heads up about Allie coming over, and this is when it comes to light about them dating. And he is so excited, actually. He has wanted Josh to have a partner and to, have a girlfriend for so long, and now he finally has one, and he's very excited for him, right? No hard feelings. Bro code is totally fine, right? There's no jealousy or anything. It wasn't meant to be between him and Allie, and he's happy that his buddy, getting some. Anyway, so Allie goes over to that apartment. It's a big deal, right? Everybody's happy. She goes straight into his bedroom, and she is just kind of soaking in being in his room and like taking in the mirror and the bed from all of his, TikTok videos. But she can't enjoy it for too long because she gets a phone call from her friend at the hospital who is running the DNA test, supposed to do the comparison. And her friend says, hey girl, I got some bad news for you. She says, it doesn't match, does it? Like, she's caught on. She knows Josh's games. She knows he did something. Her friend says, yeah, that, but also there's something else that I need to tell you. Allie sits down because she says that just the tone of her voice, this feels like something that you should hear while you're sitting down. And her friend says, yeah, I don't know, it just, something felt weird, so I went ahead and ran it through the database, and the DNA that was on the bloody rag has a 50% match to the Ken doll killer. Allie says nothing because she goes into shock and drops her phone on the ground, and she's like processing in her head of, holy freaking crap, my boyfriend's father's a serial killer who unalived a whole bunch of women. And is this why he does mask stuff? Is this what he does, this cosplay with fake blood? And we literally just killed a guy. Like, is he just actually genuinely a psychopath? Have I been falling for this charm this whole time? Spiraling. She finally picks up the phone, verifies to her friend that she's okay and everything's fine, and goes through like a pretty significant thought process in chapter 19. So I actually will read quite a bit from this because, I don't know, I thought it was actually pretty good. Again, a lot of the insight and the way that these characters think through their thoughts, you know what I'm saying. The way that they reason with themselves, I think, is very well written and very interesting. And her friend also confirms, she asks her friend not to tell anybody about what's going on and she'll handle it herself. And her friend says, yeah, don't worry, technically I broke the law anyway doing that. I misused hospital something, not resources, but like she wasn't supposed to do that, right? That's like out of bounds of what the hospital's supposed to do. So she's like, yeah, don't worry, I like my job too much. I'm not gonna say anything. And Allie is thinking to herself, we said goodbye and hung up, and I stayed on the edge of the bed for a few minutes while I tried to get my heart rate under control. This was the dark past that Josh to tell me about. Now I understood why. What had he said about the worst time to tell me being right after he killed someone? I laughed. It sounded slightly hysterical. Yeah, that timing would have been shitty, but hearing it from him then would still have been better than finding out like this. Or maybe it was good that he wasn't present to manipulate my response. I cringed. That thought didn't seem fair. Now that the initial shock of hearing the news was wearing off, I was starting to question my knee-jerk reaction. No, I didn't know Josh that well, but it felt like I did. Not facts like what his favorite color was or who he had taken to prom, but who he was as a person. He was funny. sweet and more caring than anyone that I'd ever dated. It was hard to believe he was a good enough actor to fake all of that. I wasn't a true crime writer, but now that I had thought about it, I'd probably seen more dangerous people than that woman had. In reference to the woman that was like friends with Ted Bundy. I cannot remember her name for the life of me right now, but they were friends and she had no idea that he was who he was. She only interacted with them through highly controlled interviews, whereas I met them in the wild daily. If anything, my instincts were likely sharper than hers because she had correctional officers nearby to save her if anything went wrong. I only had myself. My family knew about him, so did my next door neighbors, and Tyler knew about me, and that was a lot of people for the cops to talk to if I suddenly went missing. Wouldn't someone planning to murder me do everything in their power to keep the witnesses to a minimum? A knock sounded from the bedroom door. "Allie?" Tyler called. "Coffee's done." It hit me then. Tyler wasn't just Josh's roommate. He was his best friend. He'd once told me that he and Josh had been besties since they were kids. That meant that he probably knew all about Josh's dad. So she gets up, she opens the door. Tyler sees her. He says, "Whoa, are you good? You look pale. Like you look like you're about to pass out." Allie, immediately, she says, "Do you know who Josh's dad is?" Tyler stiffened, his back to me. "Why do you ask?" "Do you or not?" He jerked his head in an abrupt nod. "Well, I just found out about him and I have some questions." Tyler sent me a wary look over his shoulder. I don't think I'm the one who should answer them. Josh would probably be better. "I want to hear it from you." "Why?" "Because some of my questions are harsh and I don't want to hurt his feelings." Yeah, because Josh is so delicate. "It doesn't matter if someone is delicate or not. You should care about their feelings either way." "Whatever. Ask your questions." "He's not like him, right?" Tyler jerked like I had slapped him. "Jesus, no. Why would you think that?" I contemplated bringing up Josh's social media account, but thought better. Knowing Josh, not even Tyler knew about it, and I definitely couldn't bring up Brad, but I needed clarity on something Josh said concerning his death. He made a comment about worrying that he was fated to be a killer. That psychologist. What? After Josh's dad got arrested, his mom took him to see some renowned psychologist to help heal Josh's trauma. The doctor had just taken part in a study trying to prove that psychopathy was genetic. He was convinced he was right, even though the data was slightly questionable, and there was Josh, a golden goose dropped right into his lap. Within a month, he had Josh and Maria convinced that Josh needed to be on antipsychotics for the rest of his life or he'd turn into his father. What kind of doctor does that? He isn't one anymore. Josh wasn't the only kid manipulated in an attempt to validate his study, and his victims ended up taking part in a civil suit against him. He lost his license to practice, but the damage was done. Josh only recently got off of his meds, and if he's still making comments like the one you mentioned, he must still be questioning that decision. So she's like, "Wait, so he never actually needed antipsychotics?" Tyler says, "No, obviously you get some trauma growing up with a parent like that, and obviously he was scarred and he has some weird coping mechanisms and habits and stuff that were developed as coping mechanisms and growing up with such a dangerous person in your home. But no, Josh isn't like that. He's just kind of weird, but it is what it is." Shows Allie a photo of Josh's dad. She'd never seen him before. She's just like heard of him and realizes, oh wow, they do look alike. No wonder he was so concerned, about people recognizing him and, had such an aversion to true crime people. But then she looks closer and she's like, no, they don't look the same at all because the dad has dead eyes, like serial killer, vacant, evil eyes. And Josh, his light up the world, or some stupid shit like that. And so Tyler takes his phone back and he says, Josh has to know things. Allie, feeling safe is important to him and keeping the people he cares about safe even more so. If you're going to be with him, you'll have to accept that he doesn't give a shit about normal boundaries. My car has a GPS tracker that he put in there the day that I drove it off the lot. I have location data turned on my phone so he can constantly check up on my whereabouts. If you were a true crime fan... Oh no, I'm sorry. I just realized that audio was going through my mic My Mac, not my microphone. Sorry. Okay, anyway, continuing. Josh has to know things, Allie. Feeling safe is important to him, and keeping the people he cares about safe even more so. If you're going to be with him, you'll have to accept that he doesn't give a shit about normal boundaries. My car has a GPS tracker that he put there the day that I drove it off the lot. I have location data turned on my phone so he can constantly check up on my whereabouts. If you were a true crime fan, I never would have invited you back here because they're not allowed in the apartment. That weirdly doesn't bother me. Yeah, me neither. It's nice having someone always looking out for you, like your own personal guardian angel. Okay, so she's, kind of accepting more and more of Josh's behaviors and stuff, and there's a lot of explanations, right? She's getting a lot of answers to questions that maybe she didn't even know that she had. But she goes on to ask Tyler, okay, well, is there anything else that I should know about Josh? He says, yeah, he's vegan. She's like, oh, that's kind of weird. I guess that explains why when he made me breakfast the other day, it was garbage. Like he had eggshells all in it and the bacon was raw basically, and it was just not good at all, but it's because he's vegan. And she's like, oh, and she says as much to Tyler. She's like, oh, I didn't know that. He like cooked me eggs and bacon. And Tyler's like, ooh, he must have it bad for you, girl, because I'm not even allowed to have meat in this house. We don't play that game at all. She's like, why? Why is it such like a visceral thing? Ew. Can you guess why? It's super gross. Dad had some cannibal stuff going on. Okay. Icky, icky, icky. Icky, icky, icky. That's the extent of what I'll say there. So then we go back to chapter 20 in Josh's POV, and he shows up at the apartment. He's safe and sound. Everything's good. He and her are bonding and are so happy to be back together after all of this crazy ordeal that's gone on. And he's thinking to himself, how the had I gotten so lucky? I'd spent my entire life convinced that I couldn't have someone like her, that I wasn't safe, that a ticking time bomb lived inside my mind, and once I reached some unseen point, it would go off and boom, I'd become just like my father. Mom and Rob, his stepdad, had tried to tell me that wasn't true. So did Tyler in his own way. So did my therapist. But it wasn't until Allie that I started to think that they were telling the truth. And no, it wasn't because meeting the right person at the right time had magically healed me. I'd been warming up to the idea for a while. Allie was simply the final hurdle. She'd let herself be vulnerable with me, and instead of taking advantage of that and harming her, all I wanted to do was cherish her instead. And then they go on to have spicy time in chapter 20, and they continue to have spicy time in chapter 21. But they pull up to her house, but there's a big nice SUV in the driveway, and the engine is still hot, or like the hood of the car is still hot, so they must have just gotten there. And whatever, they don't really know what's going on, but they're assuming it's one of her family members. It is. They get in the house, everything's cleaned, it's beautiful, and then Junior is sitting at the table drinking coffee and says, hey, Mafia's coming back already to collect that debt that you owe us, Josh. We have to finish wiping Brad's computer. Josh pushes back a little bit. He's like, hey, isn't that going to be super sketchy? Like, the cops are literally still trying to investigate what's going on. And Junior says, yeah, it is going to be dangerous, and suck it up, baby. We got to do what we got to do. A couple of other things that comes out of this is part of this whole agreement is the fact that now Allie has to be a part of family dinner. Like, she has to go do family dinner nights with her uncle once. Kitty? Oh my God. Hi. Were you in my chair? Are you good? I don't know how long he's been in my chair. Come up here. Oh my goodness gracious, this little guy. Oh, he was sleeping good. He just did a big stretch. You want to come up here and say hi to the YouTube peeps? The other things to note is, yeah, she has to go to the family dinner once a month over at the uncle's house. And then also, they try to ask Junior about what happened to Brad's body. Like, they really want to know just for peace of mind to know what's going on. Junior refuses to tell them. He's like, hey, we need plausible deniability. Suck it up. Sorry, you're just not going to know. Just know that it's taken care of and everything's cleaned and good to go. Allie pretty much forces herself to go on this mission as well. She's like, look, we're one team. We'll figure this out together. Junior, suck it up. We're all going to go to Brandon's house together. And so that's exactly what they do in chapter 22. They break into the house to try and get the computer. Brandon lived alone. It should be a cakewalk, in theory. Get in there, find the laptop, clear it, and leave. He lives in a gated community, but they go in the middle of the night. They are in a power company van. There's 6 men in tactical gear, and then the driver. And so Junior, Allie, the driver and the like technical guy will stay in the van while the other guys break into the house and go and do whatever they need to do. It should be a cakewalk. It should be super, super simple, but it's not. His house is on a power generator, so when they try to cut the power for the neighborhood, his house just comes right back up, and so the alarm system comes right back up, and it's just a whole pain in the butt with all of that. And once they get into the actual house, all they can smell is dead bodies. Turns out there's 2 bodies in the basement, and Josh knows the smell because of his father, and it's very traumatizing for him, and it's very hard for him to continue with the mission. And if it wasn't for the fact that he was doing this to protect Allie, he would have bailed like immediately. Because of the bodies, because of the power system, everything going sideways, all of Allie's family decides that they're gonna pull out of the mission, basically. Like, everything has gone wrong. And so they all leave, and Allie like kicks her cousin in the junk so that she can stay behind, because everybody keeps telling her no, and she's like, screw you guys, I'm going home. Except I'm not. Screw you guys, I'm staying here. So she does, and she makes a run for it to go and get closer to the house and to go inside. Josh at least convinces her to not go inside, and so instead she waits in the snow and just keeps an eye on the outside of the house while Josh continues to try and wipe the drives from this guy's laptop and all the different programs that he was running to, you know, crack codes to get into the different passwords and to erase evidence of her from everything. So he's going through, he's got almost all of this totally wiped. Everything is great. He literally only needs like 30 more seconds and everything will be gone. And all of a sudden, Allie comes over the little walkie-talkie radio thing and says, I think somebody just pulled up. Uh-oh. It's the guy's parents. They have showed up, and in chapter 21, they go immediately into the house and go directly to Brandon's office. Luckily, Josh heard them coming, knew this was going to happen, and so he locked the doors. He hears the voices, and they're like, oh, okay, so we know where the keys are, right? They're, you know, an XYZ spot. So they go to leave to get the keys. He braces the doorway and like holds the, you know, like I'm assuming it's like a twist lock, and so he holds it twisted so that even when they put the key in, and it is the correct key, and they try unlocking it, he's like, you know, holding it firm so that it doesn't actually unlock. I feel like I just made that explanation so difficult for no reason, but whatever. He's able to deter them enough, but it's very, very dramatic. It's very intense. Finally, all of his software is done running. Everything's good. Everything's wiped. And so it's time to get the heck out of Dodge, and he can't go through the house. So he opens up the window. It's on the 2nd story, and he just makes a jump for it. He lands. He's a little hurt, but that's okay. Bust into the room because he's not holding the door closed anymore. They bust into the room. They see him on the floor, like they see him on the ground, and they're like, hey, stop, come back here. Blah, blah, blah. And obviously he makes a run for it. He finds Allie, and they both just make a run for it, even though he's really hurting from this jump. Allie and Josh are making their way through the snow, trying to get to the pickup spot where the cousin is waiting for them. But right as they're about to go and break out of the tree line or come over a hill or something, Josh spots a police car, and they're scanning with one of the big like headlight spotlight things and go over right where they are. Luckily, they're hidden just enough, but they give the heads up to Junior, and then they have to pull off to the side and also hide. And it's a very, again, high stakes, very risky moment in the book. This is definitely the most interesting piece of the whole book in that regard. I'm glossing over it and talking through it pretty quickly because it's one of those, like, it's an action scene. I feel like you have to read those ones. I can't really convey to you that part of it. But eventually, after some, you know, heart-racing, close call moments, they do finally get to the vehicle. God, why are you putting your butt on me, you little freak? Why'd you just rub your tuchus on me? That was so disrespectful. I thought we were friends. Can you see his little... Can you see his little tail? Wiggle your butt. Oh, yeah, wiggle your butt. There you go. Oh, yeah. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for showing the people. So cute. Okay, get out of here, sicko. Get your butt out of my face. Can you move? Thank you. The only other thing to note is that Josh, as he was leaving the room, he triggered the alarm. He like broke the window intentionally instead of just sneaking out because he wanted the cops to come. He was under the impression that Brad's parents, they literally rushed to the office to find Brad's laptop to also probably cover his tracks. and cover for their, golden boy son, even though obviously he's a piece of crap. And so Josh didn't want that to happen and didn't want them to get away with that. And so he triggered the alarm, and it's in an affluent neighborhood. So, of course the cops are going to show up super, super fast. Luckily, though, his parents spill the beans. They did not realize all of the horrible things that their son was actually doing and are very open with the police about everything. So that's a win. Junior is going to send a man up to the Canadian border that has a similar build to Brad and use his credentials or something, or try and get caught on some CCTV to make it look like Brad escaped to Canada. And that's how they're going to get away with everything. In chapter 24, they get back to Allie's apartment and they're getting cleaned up, right? They're about to hop in the shower, do a little bit of wound assessment, get everybody taken care of. It's literally Allie and Josh, but you know what I'm saying? Get things good to go. And so he starts the shower, and I lifted my gaze and nearly flinched. I'd been so obsessed with Allie recently that I'd skipped my last haircut. And between how long it had gotten and the dark circles beneath my eyes from exhaustion, the resemblance to the monster who fathered me was uncanny. Unable to look at myself any longer, I jerked my gaze away and got into the shower. Fuck, what a night. I had no idea how I'd kept it cool inside of Brad's place for as long as I had. If not for my need to wipe Allie from Brad's hard drive, I doubted I would have even made it to that computer. The sickly sweet smell of decomposition had plunged me into one of my most haunting childhood memories, and I'd spent the whole time in Brad's house breathing through my mouth to avoid it. I swore I could still detect a hint of decay clinging to my skin and needing to be clean. I grabbed a nearby soap bar and started scrubbing it off. I was still scrubbing when Allie slipped into the shower with me, and as much as I wanted her in my arms, I couldn't make myself stop. "Josh?" she said, placing her hand over my wrist. "I smell it on me," I blurted. From the way her face crumpled, she knew without having to ask what I was talking about. She took the soap from me and stepped close, putting her nose to my chest. "You smell clean." "You're sure?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. And they have a bit of back and forth, and he's talking about how she's going to get punished because she didn't listen to him multiple times. Like, she left the bedroom way earlier when the whole Brad thing initially happened. Like, she didn't stay safe in the bedroom like she was told to. And then something at the house that she did as well that he explicitly told her not to do. And it was for her own safety. And, she kept putting herself in danger, and he is gonna, little sexy fun time punish her for it. And by that, I mean in chapter 25, he wakes her up in the middle of the night wearing his mask, and she's tied up, and it just gets super spicy super fast. And I'm not going to detail any of it. Cut to chapter 26. This is the final chapter of the book, and they're having dinner at Allie's uncle's house. They flirt on the way, like up the walkway, talking about how much that they want to bone. And during this time, Allie took those 2 weeks off of work finally, and so they've just been living their best life together, vibing and falling in love, and everything's cool and great, and her family's cool and great, and also hitting it off, but also kind of weird because one of her cousins is missing, and there's just some drama, and it's very clear that the mafia is not done tasking them to do stuff with them. And I believe that's what leads into whatever the next book is. I'm pretty sure it's about one of her cousins, maybe, or something weird like that. And it ends with them saying, "I love you. No, I love you. Everything's so great." And that's the book. There's an epilogue. I'm not reading it. If you're familiar with my channel, I don't read them shits. If you couldn't tell me through the book, I don't care to know now. So anyway, that's the book. And yeah, how do I feel about it? I don't know. The banter was fun and flirty. The spice was hot. I'm not gonna lie. But that's about all it was. There wasn't much story. The most exciting things happened in 3 chapters with the whole mafia thing and accidentally killing the one guy. And that is quite literally the extent of anything that happened. And I know I rushed through it and I didn't really talk about any of it very much because, yeah, I don't know. It was just weird. What a strange book. I did like the characters. Again, like I said, I liked a lot of the discussion of the psychology and the thought processes on things, and really it felt realistic in a way. Just the way that they talked to each other and also in their own minds, and the way that they logicked through things felt very genuine and realistic and very easy to read in that regard. And so I understand why people really like the book. Also, I think people just have a thing for masked men, which, hey, I love Sleep Token. That's my favorite band right now. I too love masked men. I don't know why. I don't know why women thirst so heavily for masked men and like the motorcycle like Instagrams and TikToks, you know what I'm talking about? Like just the guys that just wear the helmets, and they got like 1 million subscribers just driving around on motorcycles. Like, that's all it takes. Have some muscles and cover your face, and bam, you're an internet celebrity. That's crazy, dude. It's no different, I guess, than like, you know, women doing like thirst traps in other ways. Men just have found how to finally post thirst traps for this particular audience, I guess. I don't know. It is so strange. It felt like a fan fiction in a way of I don't know. You can also tell that Nevessa is, you know, of the culture. She knows what's good. She knows those accounts. She knows those comment sections. It's so funny. So I don't know. Did I have a good time? Yes. Do I have anything to really complain about? No. So that is worth a lot, in my opinion. Like I said, I liked the consent aspects. The idea of, hey, we're not going to use a safe word because if you tell me no, I'm going to stop. Like, we're not playing that game. I also thought it was an interesting take for a dark romance where oftentimes it pushes the whole consensual non-consent thing. This one was, hey, literally, we're not playing fuck games. If you say no, we're done. Very straightforward and to the point, which I think is also like, I don't know, we're not getting into a whole spice conversation, but like an important distinction of boundaries, and not taking no for an answer is like a whole other separate conversation that you have to have with a partner of like, hey, we're about to cross a line into something else entirely. Are we cool? You know what I mean? There's like, it's just another aspect to it that I don't think is handled well or addressed well or even really addressed at all in any of these books. And so this one was interesting in that regard, to acknowledge safe words and not use them for that reason. So I don't have any complaints about the spice. I don't have any complaints for the way he treated her. I thought his backstory was interesting. Like, I think that is a very unique character. She was cool. Her job was realistic. Yeah, like I said, I don't think I have any complaints. Am I missing something? I'm sure I am, and I'm sure you guys will tell me in the comments about some crazy problematic stuff that I overlooked. But I think that's all I have to say about it. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. I think this next week I want to read a witchy book. Ooh, something a little spooky. I'm feeling a summertime spooky time, I'm thinking. Or I might read just a more genuinely terrible book like an H.D. Carlton or Penelope Douglas and lose my mind a little bit, because I haven't read like a really, really bad book in a hot minute. And then the week after that, we'll be doing another Colleen Hoover. I slowly but surely, like, I want to do once a month, do a Coho book and kind of work through her back catalog of her not so popular things. I'll put up a poll specifically to see which one we'll do, whether it's Slammed or Hopeless or Heartbones or Never Never. There's a handful of them actually that are pretty not very well known. I've only ever seen Elise Yeezy cover them. I love Elise so much. And so I want to throw my hat in the ring and cover these more unknown Colleen Hoover books as well. Yeah, so that'll be coming in May. Next week, like I said, I'm thinking witchy, but we'll see how I'm feeling by the time Friday rolls around. By the time I put the poll up, we may very well just be doing some crazy nonsense. Crazy girls doing crazy things. I think that's all I have to say. I appreciate you guys so much as always. You guys are the bomb diggity. Like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, I got Spotify in the description box below if that's something that you're interested in. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye. Can you say bye? Okay, he's shy. Oh, you want to say goodbye? All right, bye, guys.